Vibrations are more than just sources of sound, they shape reality itself. You may have heard the tantalizing idea that with precisely the right frequency, you could accomplish virtually anything, even defying gravity by making objects levitate.
Randall Carlson discussed this on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Everything vibrates at a frequency, and if you know that frequency, you can control things. And I think that's the basic idea of what we're looking at here. And it's all based upon the ancient numbers. And they're developing technologies right now, and they have been. I was recently contacted and given the go-ahead that I could talk. I've been sitting on this for 7 years without talking about it because they asked me not to talk about it until they had their patents in place and their licensing. That's all happened since last summer. So we're now free to talk about it. So that's what I'm saying. I think it would be a good idea to get me back on here. We can look at it. I'm going to lay this on Graham so he can look at it too, because I really want to get Graham's feedback on this.
I mean, would it be fair to say that there's an element of a rediscovery of a
Yes.
lost technology from the past?
I think it would be fair to say that, yes.
And so through this technology, they're able to move stones or cut stones or all the above?
All the above.
This insight sheds light on the mysterious Al Nasla rock formation in Saudi Arabia, consisting of two massive boulders perfectly bisected by an eerily smooth crack. It suggests that ancient advanced cutting techniques were possibly employed.
Okay, so this is an acoustic levitator as a whole, and it has several parts. First, we have the battery, because this thing is portable, so you can power it from the plug, but you can also use a battery, a regular battery, as your DC control card or anything. This is the switch to switch it on. Then we have a tiny transformer to transfer the input voltage to whatever voltage we want to use. We have a tiny Arduino, which is like a very little computer that will generate the signals. And then this motor driver, the big heatsink, this will amplify the signals so that they are powerful enough to power all these tiny speakers. We call these transducers, which is just a fancy word for speakers. These speakers, they only work at one frequency, and this frequency is 40 kilohertz, which we shouldn't be able to hear. But they are very, very powerful. They only work at one frequency, but they are very powerful. So if we switch on the device, now all the transducers should be emitting. And luckily, we shouldn't be able to hear anything. Only bats, dogs, and other animals should be able to hear 40 kilohertz. But because the ultrasound is so powerful, if we put some particles, they should be kept in midair with the power of sound. And although it seems that they are just being like kept there with air, actually it's not air, it's the ultrasound pushing them from all directions. And if we switch them off, they will fall.
Now let's dive into the fascinating reality of acoustic levitation.
Back in 200 CE, a team in Spain crafted a device that could actually lift and move small objects using sound alone. They used what they called stress users, essentially a techie term for speakers. These aren't ordinary speakers though. They operate at a specific frequency of 40 kilohertz, out of human hearing range but just right for bats, dogs, and other animals. Thanks to the potent force of ultrasound, when particles are placed in the device's path, they float, suspended in midair by sound. It might look like magic, as if the particles are hanging there by themselves. But in reality, it's the ultrasound waves coming from every direction that keep them up there. Take a trip back in time with this fascinating video.
casing.
Take a look at this remarkable invention by Dr. David Deek, a pioneer harnessing sound's hidden capabilities long before the modern era.
Of pressurized air that oscillate and exert force. This force can counter gravity, allowing objects to levitate. Generally, ultrasound levitation devices depend on standing waves formed when two sound waves of the same frequency collide from opposite directions. But Dr. Deek broke the mold in 1987. Working with NASA, he designed an acoustic levitation device that only needed one set of transducers, simplifying the entire setup. His device, encapsulated with the 12-inch cubed plexiglass helm, holds resonant cavity. Features 3 strategically placed speakers connected by aluminum acoustic waveguides. By manipulating a continuous 600 Hz sound wave and finely tuning the amplitude and phase relationships among the 3 speakers, Dr. Deek could masterfully control objects, allowing them to levitate and move freely in all 3 dimensions. This breakthrough presented a leap forward in how we think about manipulating physical objects with sound. Dr. David Deek's research didn't just push the boundaries of what we thought was possible with sound waves. It also had profound implications for understanding microgravity in space. His experiments, conducted in environments similar to that of a space shuttle, provided key insights into how objects behave in low-gravity conditions. But the wonders of frequency manipulation don't stop there. There's groundbreaking potential in the field of medicine too. Imagine changing DNA, not with complex surgery or genetic editing tools, but simply with specific frequencies and words. Jiff and his team demonstrated this by transforming frog embryos into salamander embryos, using only frequency transmissions, bypassing traditional gene editing methods. Moreover, JV's research group showed that damaged chromosomes like those affected by X-ray radiation could be repaired using this technology. They even managed to capture the DNA patterns of some organisms and transmit them to another, effectively reprogramming the cells to take on a new genetic identity. This isn't just about altering physical traits. According to Russian scientists, our DNA does more than build our bodies. It also acts like a storage device for information and a means of communication. These discoveries open up a world where we could potentially repair genetic damage or even reprogram our biological makeup in ways we've only dreamed of. Russian linguists made a fascinating discovery about our DNA. Much of what we thought was junk DNA, around 90% of it, actually follows the same linguistic rules as human languages. They examined the syntax, semantics, and grammar of our genetic code and found that DNA sequences use a regular grammar system and abide by set linguistic rules. This suggests that human languages might not just be a cultural development, but could be an expression of our inherent genetic structure. Swedish Dr. Jarl, well-versed in science and schooled at Oxford, found himself drawn to the mystical world of Tibet through a serendipitous twist of fate. It all started in the early 20th century, a time ripe with exploration and scientific intrigue. While on an expedition in Egypt for the English Scientific Society in 1939, Dr. Jarl received an urgent call from a Tibetan friend. He was beckoned to Tibet to help treat a lama, leading him into an extraordinary encounter where ancient Tibetan secrets of levitation and modern scientific thought met. This journey not only deepened his understanding, but also intertwined the mystical with the empirical in ways he never expected. Upon his arrival in Tibet, Dr. Jarl quickly became engrossed in local healing practices and the secretive traditions of the monasteries. His adventure took an even more intriguing turn when his Tibetan guide led him to a remote meadow adjacent to a monastery. Here in this tranquil setting lay a mysterious large hole in a rock wall, elevated about 250 meters above the ground. Ropes dangled from the cliff's edge, allowing for a descent to the meadow where a finely polished rock slab awaited. This was the site of an incredible revelation, the ancient art of levitation. In the heart of this green expanse, monks had crafted a bow-shaped cavity within the rock. With the help of yak oxen, they carefully positioned a massive stone block into this cavity. This setup, steeped in centuries of wisdom, was the monks' method to harness and demonstrate the mystifying power of levitation. The scene was perfectly arranged for a breathtaking demonstration of levitation. In a carefully orchestrated setup, 19 musical instruments, including drums and trumpets, were positioned strategically around the meadow. As the monks began a resonant symphony of chanting and rhythmic drumming, the atmosphere charged with ancient mysticism and anticipation. The stone block nestled in the specially designed bow-shaped cavity began to defy the laws of gravity, slowly lifting into the air. This incredible moment was not just experienced by those present, but was also captured on film by Dr. Yal. His recordings provide a vivid testament to this fusion of ancient Tibetan rituals and the underlying scientific principles, bridging a gap between mystical tradition and empirical evidence. The Rife machine was invented long ago by an ingenious scientist named Dr. Raymond Rife. He had a hunch that vibrations could be key to battling diseases. According to him, everything has its own specific vibration, including diseases themselves. To explore this idea, Dr. Rife developed a special microscope that could detect extremely tiny things, like viruses, by identifying their unique vibrational frequencies. What's really fascinating is what Dr. Rife did with this knowledge. He theorized that by sending matching vibrations back at these disease-causing agents, you could effectively eliminate them. It's akin to using their own vibrations against them, a microscopic duel within the human body. He named this concept the mortal oscillatory rate, which essentially means finding and using the right vibrations to defeat these harmful elements. This revolutionary idea suggested a new way to look at treatment, targeting the very essence of disease at a vibrational level. Dr. Rife was convinced that his discovery could revolutionize the way we treat disease. However, as it often happens with pioneering ideas, not everyone was on board. Some dismissed this theory as too radical, and not everyone was willing to embrace this new approach. Despite claiming some success in curing disease with his vibrational methods, Dr. Rife's innovative ideas gradually receded into the background over time. Today, the Rife machine still exists and has a following. It's a device designed to emit specific vibrations that purportedly target and destroy harmful microorganisms, aiming to restore the body's natural balance by neutralizing these bad vibes. However, it's important to note that the Rife machine is not widely recognized or endorsed by the mainstream medical community. Dr. Hans Jenny, a pioneer in the study of vibrational patterns, brought to light the mesmerizing field of cymatics. His fascination with vibrations spurred him to conduct experiments where he visualized how sound waves shape and manipulate substances like sand and water. This phenomenon, known as cymatics, demonstrates the powerful influence of sound as it transforms these materials into intricate dynamic patterns. Dr. Jenny discovered that different sounds create distinct visual patterns in the materials exposed to them, showing the profound effects vibrations have on physical matter. His work revealed that all things, even those unseen, resonate with an internal vibration that can be made visible through cymatics. These patterns are not just beautiful to look at, but also carry significant scientific implications. By studying these patterns, Dr. Jenny believed we could gain deeper insights into how various systems function. The idea is that just as sound influences sand and water, vibrations might similarly affect other systems, both biological and ecological, suggesting a universal principle at work. Dr. Jenny's exploration into cymatics opens up potential avenues for understanding more about the world around us through the lens of vibrational energy. Dr. Hans Jenny's work with cymatics shows us how vibrations can create beautiful patterns in substances like sand and water. This leads to an interesting question about our bodies, which are full of vibrating cells. Could these vibrations affect our health? Imagine sound waves organizing sand into complex designs. If sound can do that, might it also influence our bodies in a positive way? Some researchers believe that exposing our bodies to specific vibrations could potentially improve our health. This idea brings us to Dr. Masaru Emoto, who studied how emotions and vibrations can change the structure of water, which makes up a large part of our bodies. His research suggests that vibrations might not just affect water, but could have broader implications for healing and health.
We're going to talk a little bit about Dr. Masaru Emoto. You know Dr. Emoto. Beautiful crystallography. I'll show you some of those crystals today. But on stage, he goes up on stage and he has a triangle, a musical triangle that he hits like an orchestra. taking it over here. He gets a bing, and about 30 yards or 30 feet away is his interpreter standing here with the same exact replica of that same size triangle. Frequency tuned to the same frequency. And he tells his interpreter to put a microphone next to it. And suddenly this one starts to resonate. He hits that one over there. This one starts resonating. How much of your body is full of water?
Now, here's where it gets really intriguing. Dr. Masaru Emoto conducted experiments showing how thoughts and words can affect water crystals. He found that positive things like music and kind words can make water form into beautiful, clear crystals. On the other hand, negative influences make the crystals form into messy and disordered shapes. This suggests that what we say and think might have more impact than we realize. Considering that over 60% of the human body is made up of water, think about how the music we listen to might affect us. Dr. Masaru Emoto's research suggests that positive sounds like music can influence water to form beautiful patterns. So how does this specific frequency affect our bodies, given the vibration's potential impact on water? The music tuned to this frequency could be influencing us in ways we're only beginning to understand.
Play our music is in A440. Where did that come from? It used to be 417. A440 came in with the Roman Catholic Church. They suppressed the frequencies. They lost somehow the 152 of the best Gregorian chants, including the hymn to St. John the Baptist, which we've now recovered. That particular hymn was what triggered Dr. Palaio's investigation, looking for those frequencies of vibration by which the music was played. It was known as the most uplifting hymn of all the ages, the most spiritually uplifting hymn. Hymn to St. John the Baptist. It was played to 6 tones. These are those 6 tones. These are those 6 frequencies. And so the A440 is what now is the standard tuning. That if you do the analysis, you know how I just showed you that the English language is 180 degrees flipped. I mean, you couldn't get farther away before coming back in a perfect circle, back to closer to the original, right? 180 degrees, that's as far as it could get. They did the same thing with the music. If you go A439, you're closer to one of the Creator's tones. If you go A441, you're closer to one of the Creator's original tones. That's how precisely it has been manipulated. To do what? To shut down the 95% of your brain, particularly the right brain that operates the heart-mind for the divine human community. Here is another metaphor so that you begin to understand what we're talking about. When you go driving your car and your channel on the radio is tuned to a station and you're grooving to the music, you love that music. As you get farther and farther away from the broadcasting tower, that music gets static. You start to lose the signal from the clear channel, broadcast, and it gets staticky. When it gets staticky, you get a little annoyed. But you want to listen to it. You really have a heart for that music, so you continue to listen to it for another 10, 15 miles, and suddenly it becomes so annoying that you just get disgusted, you go, and you shut it off. And if you continue to listen to it, you get sick. That's what we're talking about here. Except you don't even know that you've been listening to the static your whole life. You don't even know what the true resonant frequency is because it has been kept. So in other words, the master composer, master conductor of the Universal Orchestra is singing love songs in 5/8, uplifting everything simultaneously. And we're the only species out of tune and accepting static.
In 1939, the musical pitch standard was shifted from 432 Hz to A440, despite vehement objections. This change, some allege, altered music's impact on the human energy system.
By 23,000 French musicians, advocating to keep the pitch at 432 Hz. Despite these efforts, the standard was set at 440 Hz for concerts and broadcasts. Then in 1950, the US government took a significant step by requiring all musical equipment and broadcasts on TV and radio to adhere to this 440 Hz standard. Leonard G. Horowitz has explored this change extensively, suggesting that the Rockefeller Foundation influenced this shift as part of a broader war on consciousness, altering the standard tuning to 440 Hz. Horowitz's thesis points out that music tuned to 440 Hz could affect our internal energy systems, particularly conflicting with the chakras from the heart to the base of the spine. While stimulating those above the heart, this frequency is thought to boost ego and left brain functions, potentially dampening intuition and creativity. Some musicians report feeling more harmonious or tuned in when they adjust their instruments slightly away from the 440 Hz standard, preferring frequencies like 444 Hz, 528 Hz, or returning to 432 Hz. These alternatives are believed to be more natural, resonating better with both the human body and nature, and have been gaining popularity among those seeking a more authentic sound experience. Brian T. Collins, who founded a website dedicated to exploring the intersection of music, metaphysics, and spirituality, strongly advocates for reconsidering the current standard musical tuning.
The A440 frequency took hold, a growing movement advocates returning to 432 Hz, a tuning with potential to resonate with the cosmos and the human form in powerful new ways.
Tuned their music to 432 Hz, a frequency that has been affectionately termed the Verdi tuning. This frequency is believed to resonate more naturally with the universe and the human body. Despite this, most Western music today, including popular and New Age genres, still adhere to the 440 Hz standard. However, the slight shift from 440 Hz to 432 Hz, which changes the vibration only by 8 cycles per second, is said to make a significant difference in how music impacts human consciousness. More and more musicians, along with experts in fields ranging from mathematics to medicine, are advocating for frequencies like 444 Hz or 528 Hz, which are thought to carry positive vibrations that promote love and universal connection. These changes in frequency are more than just technical tweaks, they are part of a broader movement to tap into music's ancient role as a source of healing and spiritual growth. As we continue to learn about these frequencies, we have the chance to reconnect with our spiritual roots through music, contributing to a broader spiritual renaissance.